This is welcome to Building Bridges Between Library Communities. Thank you so much for coming. I know we had kind of heavy competition with several things, so I appreciate seeing you here. And I just wanted to say up front that this session will be in two parts. The first, those of us from Lehigh University, there are two of us here, are going to be talking about our experience in cataloging and BIBFRAME and working with several different tools. And then Wayne Schneider is here from Index Data. Camera's not on. Excuse me. Thank you. And then for the second part, Wayne Schneider from Index Data will be talking about some, he's always working on cool stuff, so I'm just going to call it cool stuff that he's working on that I think the two are going to cross over. We hope bridge together because when we show you our workflow at Lehigh, you're going to see some flaws in it and in building bridges between communities. And a lot of that building bridges is between BIBFRAME to MARC. So in order not to get siloed, and I think you've seen a lot of presentations at this WOLFcon where there's a lot of attempts to bridge that gap from MARC to FOLIO or BIBFRAME to MARC, MARC to BIBFRAME. So that's the sort of the common thread here, and that's the bridge we're all attempting to build. And it looks like our video's on. Are we good there? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so with that being said, the Lehigh portion, my name is Lisa McCall. I'm Metadata Services Manager at Lehigh University, and I'm here with my colleague.
And I'm Ann Winkler, and I'm a Lending Services and Metadata Specialist at Lehigh University.
And over the past year and a half, Lehigh University has been working with cataloging and BIBFRAME, and we come to you as cataloging practitioners, Ann and I do. We're not developers. We're here to kind of show you the boots on the ground, what it looks like to be a cataloger at this point in time in BIBFRAME. And then hopefully that will be relatable to some people and add to your understanding of maybe the higher level developments that you hear about and what the reason is for those developments. But for us, it's just a pleasure because we've heard about BIBFRAME for so long to be able to catalog in BIBFRAME. And we got this opportunity because in last January, Lehigh became a member of ShareVDE. ShareVDE is a consortium of libraries. It's an international consortium. They are run by, my understanding of the relationship, they're developers, and their main provider is the company at Colt and Castellini. So I have their little logos here in the ShareVDE square. And once we became a member because we are very interested in BIBFRAME at Lehigh and understanding and being able to catalog in it with it. And what usually happens is they have a shared catalog. And so if you become a member, you send them all of your MARC records. They transform them into BIBFRAME and they add them to their svde.org URL catalog, and that's a linked data catalog. So we have two separate environments, then we're sending them our MARC records to their environment. Well, thankfully, when Lehigh became a FOLIO member, well, we were an early FOLIO member, and we adopted FOLIO in 2020, August of 2020, and Index Data is our hosting provider. And Index Data and ShareVDE work closely together, so there's just this community that you keep hearing about these cross-pollinations of, and that's another one. So they worked on an integration that I showed last year. So Ann is going to be showing a demo of that integration, but also some new features that have been added and some things that had been on our wish list too as practitioners. Trying to think. So for this project, we focused on using a collection that we received at Lehigh University, our special collections from Rodale and Company, which is a publishing company that's geographically located fairly close to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where Lehigh University is. And that company deceased in 2017, and we received a lot of their admin materials, papers, magazines. If you're not familiar with Rodale, you might be familiar with Men's Health magazine, our Prevention magazine. They were responsible for the output of those. Some famous books are, in my mind, because I worked at a bookstore in the 90s and you couldn't live with Eat This, Not That. That was a really famous book. Also, I didn't realize, but An Inconvenient Truth was one they published too, Al Gore's book. So we have to catalog, in addition to all those papers, Ann and I have been working on cataloging their company Monograph collection. So a lot of their books that were published in English, we have, but also we have their translations into so many different languages because they were such a popular health publisher. So a lot of their books were published, and you can see the different languages up here on the slide that, and this is, we haven't hit them all yet, so there may be more to be coming. This is not necessarily a complete list, but this is the minimum list of different languages that we have. So this seemed to be like a very good opportunity for BIBFRAME to me because number one, it's all monographs, and a lot of BIBFRAME, especially even a year ago, I heard more today than I've ever heard about non-monographic cataloging in BIBFRAME. But it's an easy start for us for monographs. But also, I was really intensely interested in how the clustering would work with the various languages since everything originated in English. So theoretically, we didn't know, and it's starting to look like we're not really sure, but theoretically, it would be nice if everything we had in English had a different multiple translations. And so we will be showing you an example of something like that. And with BIBFRAME, the clustering should help make that more apparent, those relationships between the original and the translations. So that was our vision and our purpose. So then I started to work with JCricket, and Anne's about to show you a demo, but the work with JCricket, well, I should actually say this first, is the entity editor for ShareVDE. So if you've gone to several sessions, you've seen Marva, Sinopia. This is the equivalent. This is ShareVDE's version of those different editors. And what the work index data did, we'll show you. But to start with, Anne's going to show you, demonstrate some BIBFRAME cataloging in JCricket.
Got to get the right tab open. Yeah, so what I'm going to be showing you today is the creation of one opus, 2 works, and 2 instances, as well as some of the various agents, companies, and so forth. So, wait a second. Let me get this up. Apparently, I'm not authorized. Oh, it's going to make me log in again. Give me 1 second to log in. I think it just timed out on us. Okay, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and start. And let's try this again. Nope, I got it. There we go. So ideally, as more and more libraries join the ShareVDE network, things like the agent and the publisher are going to kind of already be in there. But just a quick peek behind the behind what it would look like, we decided to go ahead and catalog with specifically the book, The South Beach Diet, because we do have it in both English and Chinese, as well as several other languages. So we were hoping to see that clustering effect and to sort of see how various languages can show up within JCricket. So here I have the authors page. I went ahead and filled out all of the different sections of this, but as you can see, we can include all of the biographical information and identifying attributes that we need to differentiate this person from any other person with the same name, including birth date, death date, place of birth, place of death, those sorts of things, as well as you can see here, an alternative name here. So this is his Chinese name. And for essentially, as different entity or as different libraries join the ShareVDE community, if we don't have all of the biographical information we need to make this a distinct entity, then other libraries within the system can go in, edit the entity, and there will be a review process before that's pushed out to the community as a whole. So this is ensuring that there's a communication between various different institutions and sharing of knowledge. In a similar vein, is it going to make me sign in every time? Okay, we're good. In a similar vein, for organizations, we're inputting the same kinds of information, and it goes through a similar review process. So here you can see that we have Rodale Incorporated as the name of the institution, as well as its founding year and dissolution year, as well as its location. And one thing you'll notice sort of throughout the process of cataloging within JCricket is a lot of things are self-referential, and a lot of things are mentioned in multiple places. So here we have at the bottom the URI for Emmaus, Pennsylvania, and that was a separate entity that was created that we can link all of the things published in that location together. So once you have all of the different entities already created, we kind of came to this issue where we weren't exactly sure where to start in the cataloging process. And essentially, we found that starting with the opus is usually easier. So in ShareVDE, that's considered the original work. So in the original work, that's where we would include information such as title, author, the languages that the works that will eventually be linked in can go there, and there are plenty of other attributes that we would associate with the opus level that can be added in. Once we have the opus done, then we can go ahead and start at the work level. Yes. Yeah, so actually, is that the work level? Thought I had these in order. So at the work level, this is where you're going to start putting in core attributes such as the language, the content, the carrier, year it's published, and this is where we've added in our classification information. There are plenty of properties that you can include in this that would be designated to the work level. And there are some that are being updated, but you can see here that there's like notation, genre, the type of content, who the book is for, those sorts of things. In here, you can see that there's a URI for the author here. And it's really as simple as taking the original URI, putting it into the box, and it'll automatically connect it with the agent itself. And here you can see this is the record that we have for our Chinese language version. So the only things that needed to be changed are the language, the year of publication, and we've also included the translator at this level. She is also a separate entity, so we've added her URI in on the back end as well. And then from there, we're going to get into sort of the more nitty gritty at the actual the instance level. This is the physical item in hand. This is where a lot of that normal descriptive cataloging is coming from. This includes details such as the title, the statement of responsibility, the edition statements. You can include media and carrier type at this level as well. And this is also where you're going to start putting in physical attributes such as page count, size of the book, if there are illustrations, that sort of thing. And then you can see here. This is our Chinese record. So we did have a little bit of confusion at first about where we should be putting parallel titles, transliterations. And really, it's as simple as it just goes in the title, in the title section. There's no separate section for those sorts of things. You can also see here that we've been able to add the transliteration at every level. So the addition statement, the title, the contributors, those sorts of things. And then finally, sort of as a this is coming up, we can also do an item level record. And this is where you put information such as the barcode and the location itself. Currently, we cannot link the URI for the item into the instance record, but that is coming up. And one of the new features that was really awesome, oh, give me 1 second. ShareVDE has also recently made it so that we're able to search from external sources as well as from the ShareVDE search box directly. And let me... There we go. So in their test environment, let me, There we go. Within the test environment itself, we are also able to see external providers. This is where we can search in specific catalogs. So we have this connected to the Lehigh dev environment. So we are able to do things like, not that. We can search Rodale and see in ShareVDE all of the records that we have that mention Rodale, and then we can click into individual records to copy and paste information from that from those specific entities, so that it's an easier sort of copy cataloging process if that is necessary and you have like a different edition. So,
Great, that's or actually, I want the dev page.
The dev page, like the Lehigh dev page. Yeah, that's the one I have.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Anne, for braving the demo. And after all that information is inputted into JCricket, the integration with FOLIO then comes because it comes directly into FOLIO. And so the work that Anne cataloged.
If you go to the next tab, it's already full.
That's not the one. Oh, it's okay. Oh, they did.
Do you need the URL?
I have a link for my slides. I'm just looking. Sorry. Okay, here's the work and catalog. Now, ideally, this would be in real time, but we didn't want to take any more risks than we're already taken. So this happened on the 18th, but it did, when Anne cataloged, did that example in the JCricket demo, it did come in and you can see if maybe you can see, but it's actually the last updated to today. So the updates have already come in and we see it's working. So great, excellent example. So what Index Data did, and working with with ShareVDE, is to some features of this record now are number one to me as a cataloger, there's no MARC record that we can edit. And right now it's uneditable from the FOLIO standpoint. You'd have to go back into JCricket like Anne just did to get the update in the editor. But now we have a record of this book that we have in our collection in FOLIO. So there's that sudden connection that we have, but we're not, the source of truth now has gotten dispersed, right? The source of truth is a little bit over in the ShareVDE in Italy where their service provider is and here. So it's a little bit disconcerting from my point of view, but if that's the way things are going, I don't know. The instance, now instance, there's a folio instance, and this confused me for a while, and there's a instance level in BIBFRAME. The BIBFRAME instance that's coming from JCricket, the identifier that ShareVDE uses has now become our folio instance identifier. So it's an equivalent instance. And the source is SF, which they, ShareVDE just used that for share family linked data. You could probably, I don't know if I can get down, but you could sort by source on the left, just as a filtering thing to see how it's kind of integrated within the entire inventory ecosystem. This does come in there and you can search and find records that way. And the other aspect I wanted to show is if I do go into edit instance, you can see they're grayed out, so I can't edit it. But you can see, and this is where I start thinking, well, maybe the inventory record was a pretty good idea. And I've heard this a few times in this conference too, right? It's the abstraction layer for a MARC record or a BIBFRAME record in this case. So you can see the translator has come through. The identifier for the ShareVDE is there also, and the pages and your basic bibliographic information, but that has come through nicely, and I don't really have a wish list in my mind of what else I wish was there at the moment. I'll say that. So that's something that happened a year ago. I am in the next, in the Trillium release, there's going to be a specified place for that instance identifier from either Sinopia or Marva or JCricket, assuming JCricket continues to work, which I think they plan on it. And that's going to be in admin information in the inventory record. So rather than having it as an instance ID, it's the instance source URI is going to be presented here. So it's just becoming a little more embedded in to Folio. So with all this, you just saw cataloging, and last year my big wish list, I just can't stand it when it doesn't show up in Discovery, right? Because we do link data because we want it in Discovery so badly for so many reasons. So we really prodded our developer on staff. We really asked, can you take this instant identifier and use it and bring in information from ShareVDE? We almost don't care what it is. We want to see something. So he did that for us, and it's a proof of concept. It's not supposed to be pretty, so I'm saying this to show you because Maccabee is the one who did it. I know many of you know him here, and he does not think this is pretty, but we just wanted the info there. So we took a book by, we asked him to bring in information. This is a book by J.I. Rodale, who is an interesting person. So as Anna and I are cataloging, we sometimes get in conversations about the publisher and looking up different things, and it becomes interesting in that way. But anyway, J.I. Rodale is sort of a character in himself, but he wrote this health finder. And then so Maccabee, God bless him, made this test environment of, this is using ViewFind, and with the API, and he admits this is not necessarily in using that instance identifier, it takes a while because it's doing a lot of queries and questions, and he figures it probably could be more efficient. And we did load this before, but it's reloading now. But this works by this author. All the lists that hopefully will appear shortly are all coming from ShareVDE. Yeah, and that's not what it's supposed to look like. And this has happened a few times today, so I'm not alarmed. Anyway, so the point is, as I'm loading this, we do have an end-to-end. Do we think this is an ideal workflow and it can be done en masse? No, we don't. However, we are learning, and then when I go to other different places, I kind of encourage this, and hopefully we're here again as an example of, because when you do see the bigger picture, you understand why it's there and what it's doing. So hopefully that's relatable. And you can just...
Yeah. I can real quick, we did get a screenshot of this at the very end. So ideally it would pop up with the title, publication year, and language information. We were talking with Maccabee about getting some other information in there, but that would be so many API calls that it would be even slower than it currently is. So we decided to forego that and just start with some of the basic information. And then finally, we did kind of want to broaden the scope to not just for us as catalogers, but also for the researchers at our institutions. So linked data extends the impact of our cataloging by making library resources more interconnected, discoverable, and usable in many new ways. The seamless discovery by linking authors, works, subjects, places, and concepts across data sets allows researchers to follow relationships more naturally and uncover relevant items that may not be in our catalog. The authority control is made visible. Linked data can make both the standard identifiers distinguishable while also providing information and transparency about where this information is coming from, because we can see in the JCricket editor who made the last edits and what those edits were. It also encourages cross-disciplinary exploration because linked data is connecting resources across institutions. Researchers gain access to a much wider network of knowledge, which then supports inquiry across different disciplines and fosters collaboration within a broader scholarly community. The machine readability for digital scholarships supports computational methods that traditional MARC records can't, which especially is valuable for fields of research such as the digital humanities or other data-driven research topics. And then finally, it also allows, I just realized that I had authority control made visible twice on the slide. It also allows linked data to break down the silos of information that we have within academia and libraries by linking our catalogs to the ShareVDE enhanced catalog, which brings in information from worldwide. So researchers are no longer required to figure out which specific catalog they need to search. If it's in ShareVDE, they'll be able to find it whether it's here or across the ocean somewhere else. Any questions before we have Wayne take over?
There might be some chat.
Yeah. Yeah, those are just the ones from earlier. Okay. So.
Oh, excellent. Hi, folks. My name's Wayne Schneider. I'm a software engineer at Index Data. And my job at Index Data is mostly operations engineering. So, but I have this sort of side gig where I do a lot of BIBFRAME stuff. And my background is in library technology. I've been in library technology since the mid-90s. As we were sort of preparing for this presentation, and also as I attended the BIBFRAME special interest group workshop earlier this week, I've been thinking about as you know, essentially a subcontractor in this game. What are ways that we can? What are the frictions in the workflow? What are the different kinds of workflows that we need to be able to support, both in FOLIO and with external linked data providers? And what are some of the ways that we can make that easier? So this is a slide from our presentation last year. Actually, this was put together by AtCult that illustrates the workflow for how the Lehigh integration is working. So essentially, what Anne showed you is happening behind the scenes. There are lots of boxes and arrows, right, to make this happen. If you've been to presentations by AtCult, you know that they love diagrams with boxes and arrows. So I just stole theirs because they are really good at it. So a couple of things that I wanted to point out. The first is that when you're on the blue side, you're working with the common knowledge base of ShareVDE. That's a CKB. The data from the CKB flows into Folio mostly through a piece of software that we actually created, but it's part of Folio. It's called Mod Inventory Update. And what it is it's a piece of software that really it was developed originally for German library consortia to work with their shared union catalogs, where they don't work in MARC either. And they didn't want MARC in their systems. And it's just a piece of software that is kind of dumb stupid and takes what you give it and shoves it into inventory. But that's the kind of software we like to build because it's a little less error prone than some of the more complicated software that's part of Folio. So anyway, this is how the integration that you saw earlier is being accomplished behind the scenes. And there you can think of other sort of I think of Lehigh and other certainly other US libraries as being in sort of a hybrid cataloging situation if they're trying to do BIBFRAME adoption, right? So you've got lots and lots of MARC out there. You have vendor MARC records, you have this large corpus of legacy MARC, and you're probably maintaining that legacy MARC as MARC. I mean, you have cataloging staff who are trained to work with MARC. You have perhaps some data that is in MARC that's not easy to represent in a linked data representation. You have authority control. Authority records are MARC, right? There's not really. I mean, the Share family is offering some sort of authority control, but otherwise, authority records are MARC. Even the Library of Congress, even though they provide linked data representations of their authority records, the basis of the authority record is still MARC. And of course, if you're not every library does their own authority control. And so if you're working with a vendor for authority control, you're exchanging MARC records all the time. But there may also be linked data entity updates that you need to be able to pull into your local system. And you may, many libraries are going to be members in multiple sort of collaborative cataloging environments, communities like WorldCat, as well as the Share family, right? Like you're contributing records in both places. You're copy cataloging from both communities. So another example of a hybrid workflow is what the Library of Congress is doing right now. This was presented last week, I think, at the BIBFRAME in Europe conference, and we've been doing some work with them to sort of help them think about how they want this to work. So they have a BIBFRAME database, BFDB, that is a triple store that contains all their BIBFRAME that their catalogers work with using the Marva editor, and that feeds the LDS ID, id.loc.gov website. So they have, again, a lot of arrows and boxes to synchronize data between the BibFrame database, the BFDB, and Folio, which for them, they think of themselves as having two sources of truth, which is a pretty challenging thing to consider. But so because they provide MARC records via the MARC record service to the world, essentially, MARC is still the primary thing that they need to be able to generate. And so they have all these workflows to get data back and forth from Folio to the BibFrame database, and from the BibFrame database back into Folio and out to their public catalog, which is Locate, I believe, and that's a MARC record. That's a MARC record expert. So I've been reading the book Nudge, and if any of you have read it, the authors are not coming to my mind right off the top of my head, but they talk about nudges that you can make to make things easier for people to do the right thing, and sludge, which are things that get in the way. And so I thought I would sort of, based on the presentations that we've seen this week, just sort of note a few friction points in the workflow. When I asked the panel at the BIBFRAME workshop earlier this week what were things that got in the way of them being able to do good integration with FOLIO, the number one thing is that really FOLIO has a MARC-centric view of bibliographic description. I mean, you can say, well, the inventory data model is BibFrame inspired, but really an instance is a MARC record, isn't it? And there's a good reason for that. It's not really a criticism. I mean, so much library data exchange, in fact, the vast majority of library data exchange is MARC-centric, right? MARC is our primary data exchange format, and there's just really no way of getting around it in a lot of, depending on how you look at it. We also have some problems that come from, I think, what I would consider to be competing requirements for storage of descriptive metadata, right? So you can think of it as caching, perhaps, but essentially we need a lightweight abstraction layer, in order to do efficient storage and retrieval. The inventory data model was an attempt at that. It's not very lightweight anymore, right? It's really quite a thick data model at this point because we need rich descriptive data for search and for item differentiation, right? I mean, we can't get away with out that data in our systems easily retrievable. We even need to, and I'm going to get into this in the next slide, arguably we need to further enrich our data model to do better integration with linked data entities, create places for things like URI, for identifiers throughout the data model, potentially, in order to be able to really effectively do linked data integration. We also have just sort of library practice. We have decades of practice maintaining a local catalog. We have this idea that I have my record set, and I am the curator of my record set, and part of that curation is that I do my own things with my data, right? Like maybe I create 9 XX fields, or I say, well, I don't really use that subject heading, so I'm going to remove it, or whatever. And that's particularly challenging in the US. Europeans have more of a sense of a union catalog, I think, than we do in the US. So that's another sort of friction point because FOLIO is set up to support that workflow because that's how most US libraries work. And then another sort of piece of sludge is that there's lots of, I mean, what can you say, right? There are lots of, why is back not working here? Oh, there we go. No. Okay, where's page up? Ah, there we go. Right, there are lots of boxes and arrows, and at various points the data has to be transformed, and that can be a lossy process. Metadata librarians hate to lose data, right? So there are all kinds of there are some bits of sludge that are in the system. There are also some things that we can do to nudge FOLIO in a direction to make it better. These are things that we could do in FOLIO, that feel potentially not necessarily low-hanging fruit, but feel within reach to me in the near to medium term. We've already introduced an identifier property into the instance to say what's the source URI, as Lisa demonstrated. Both the National Library of Sweden and at CULT, I have said we really need identifier properties as sub-properties of things like the publisher or the topic or the agent in the inventory data model, so that I mean, it's beyond authority linking, right? We're talking about entity linking at a little more granular level. I think we need more standardized, transparent APIs for entity import with well-documented predictable side effects. I mean, that feels like it should be an obvious thing, but that's certainly not the state that we're in today, right? You bring in a record somewhere and then something else happens somewhere else and you're not sure why. We just need better documentation and transparency and consistency around those APIs, and similarly for entity export. So one thing that we at Index Data have been thinking about for the last few months, we haven't actually done any work on it, we're just sort of talking about it and kicking it around, is what if there was some kind of extensible linked data middleware that could sit in between your FOLIO system and an external linked data provider. And, you know, an interesting thing to me to think about is that the way that the FOLIO linked data editor is architected, it's essentially an external essentially an external linked data source, right? I mean, it's not, it uses data import to get data from the knowledge graph into inventory and to create a MARC record. So, you know, we like to think about this kind of thing because we like to make sort of Swiss Army knife things. And so this would be something that would be kind of fun to work on. As we thought about it, like the key principles of a piece of software like this would be that it would be first of all, it would be event driven. So it would be listening for changes on either side in order to update either push up changes to an external source or pull down changes from an external source and push them into FOLIO. And ideally, it would be great to leverage existing and emerging protocols like OAI PMH for MARC, EMM for linked data. You know, we like standards. So it would be great to have sort of a standards-driven event-based update mechanism. I think it would need to have high fidelity pluggable data crosswalks because there are still boxes and arrows. Maybe some of the boxes get encapsulated into one box. But there's a need to be able to crosswalk data without losing it. You know, the Library of Congress has done a lot of work in building converters to get you from BIBFRAME to MARC and back again, if you're willing to sort of adopt what they call modern MARC. I think that's funny. To make it more round trippable with BibFrame. It would need to have provenance and audit trails so that you know why a record got updated, who updated it, where the update came from. And it would need to have some kind of modular extensibility, I think, so that you could do things like authority reconciliation to say this entity is this authority record or what have you. But you might not need to do that, and so it might be nice to have some kind of pluggable architecture for that. And so you know, as I said, you know, it's easy to propose software. It's fun to propose software. But you know, it could be something like a FOLIO module. I mean, we already have a mod entities links that might have enough bones in it to do that, although it's really focused on linking authority records to MARC records. So I mean, maybe there's something that's a little more generalizable that needs to be built, or maybe it's an external web service API that you deploy externally to your FOLIO instance and allow it to talk back and forth. So anyway, that's just sort of a thought experiment that we wanted to put out there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If there are any questions, I'm happy to talk about it, or I'm happy to hang around and talk about this later with anyone who wants to talk about it. Thanks.